All right, this is the second part to the video. Yesterday we went over how to use polynomial division. We did all this. Realized I didn't do any highlights, so I got to do it today. Today we're going to be covering synthetic division. Synthetic division is a faster way of dividing, which is great, but the only problem is that it works when the divisor is of the form x plus c or x minus c. Okay, so let's go back to the examples yesterday. Yesterday, I was able to do a regular division. I won't be able to use synthetic division here because there's a 4 in the way, right? It's either got to be x plus a number or x minus a number, and I can't have anything in the front. So I wouldn't be able to use synthetic division on this one. I wouldn't be able to use synthetic division on this one because, again, there's a 2 in the front that's in the way. I wouldn't be able to use synthetic division on this one because it's an x squared instead of just an x, right? However, I will be able to use synthetic division on this one because it's x plus 2. Again, as long as it's x plus a number or x minus a number, then you can use synthetic division. So there is a drawback to synthetic division. That's why we can't always use it, even though it's much, much faster. Okay. So here are the steps for dividing polynomials using synthetic division. Number one, you must make sure that you are dividing a polynomial function by the form x minus c. They say x minus c. I'm telling you, you can get away with x plus c. You just got to make sure that you take the opposite number, okay? All terms of the dividend must be in descending order by degree. That's to say you need to have this in order, and make sure that you put a 0 in the correct variable to hold the place of any missing term. So if you don't have any x cubes, for example, it's like x to the fourth plus x squared plus 2x plus 9, and you don't have any x cubes, you got to put a 0 in its place, all right? Write c of the divisor x minus c, and write the coefficients of the dividend to the right across the top. You'll see what that means in a little bit. You're going to bring down the leading coefficient to the bottom row just to get us started, and then you're going to multiply the c by the value just written on the bottom row, and then add that value to the next column. You're going to repeat this process until done. A lot of gobbledygook, and you just need practice until you understand the pattern. If there is a remainder, then always add it to the remainder to the end as the remainder divided by the divisor. That's what we did yesterday, okay? So let's take a look because there's a lot of stuff going on. First of all, I want you to notice a couple of things. Number one, this isn't descending order. It's x to the fourth, x cubed, x squared, x, and then your constant. This is valid because it says x plus c. I can do it. Now, what they were saying is earlier they said, oh, no, you have to write it as x minus c. Really what they're saying is they want the opposite of what's in here. So if it's a positive 2 in here, then your number that's going to go out here is going to be a negative 2, almost like finding the 0. Okay, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So let's set this up. I have a negative 2. We're going to make like a little semi box. So let me try that again. I'm going to make a little semi box like this. I'm going to have a negative 2 out here. Why do I have a negative 2 out here? Because it's the opposite of whatever I am dividing out here, okay? And then I'm going to take my leading coefficients out of each one of these, and I'm just going to put them inside my box, okay? Make sure you give yourself a little gap right there because we are going to be using that gap, okay? So let's write these numbers across the top. So my first leading coefficient is going to be a 2, followed by a 5, followed by a 5, followed by a 10, followed by an 8. All I did was I took the first number of each one of these coefficients and I put them in my box, okay? Okay, here's where we start doing stuff. Let's do a couple of things. Me personally, I like doing this. I like to put a plus here and a times here just to remind myself, like, what am I supposed to be doing with what? It'll make sense in a little bit. So let's see. Let's kind of follow my steps. Did I make sure that I'm dividing by a binomial that's of the form x minus c? Yep, step 1 is done. Are all the terms of the dividend in decreasing order? Yep, did that. Did I put a 0? I didn't need any zeros, so step 3 is done. Step 4, write the c. I did that. That's my negative 2. I did that on the outside. Step 5, bring down the leading coefficient to the bottom row. Okay, so I did not do that. Let me go ahead and take that. I'm going to take this 2. I'm going to bring it down here. And now I have 2. All right, so what do I do now, right? This is the part where you have to memorize. You're going to multiply the c by the value just written on the bottom row, and then add that value to the next column. You're going to repeat the process until you're done. So what the heck does that mean? That means I'm going to take this -2. This is why I have this here. I'm going to multiply it by this +2. -2 times +2, the answer I get is a -4, and I write that number up on the next section right here. Now, I have a -4 in here. What am I going to do with the -4? That's why I have this symbol here. I'm going to add these two numbers right here, 5 plus -4, and the answer I get is +1. What do I do with that one? Well, again, that's why I have the symbol down here. I'm going to take the -2, multiplied by +1, that's a -2, and I write that number in the next spot. What do I do with that -2? I'm going to add these two numbers, 5 minus 2, that's a +3. What do I do with that +3? I take the -2 and I multiply it by a +3, I get -6. What do I do with that -6? I take the 10 and I add the -6, that's a +4. What do I do with that +4? I take the -2 and I multiply it by 4, that's a -8. What do I do with that -8? I take the 8 and the -8 and I add them together, and the answer I get is 0. Okay, so there's the synthetic division. I am done. And so now the question becomes like, what the heck did we just do, right? Well, what we just did is we took this polynomial and we divided by the binomial x plus 2. This last number tells you what your remainder is. That means I did not get a remainder. And the rest of these terms give you the coefficient for your polynomial starting with a constant. So again, there is no remainder because I have a 0. This is my constant. This is my x. This is my x squared. This is my x cubed. So I'm going to write this as 2x cubed plus x squared plus 3x plus 4 is my answer to the question, what is this polynomial divided by this polynomial? I know that seems a little confusing, but trust me, once you get the pattern for synthetic division, this method is so much faster than this method right here. Okay, so let's try it again and see if we can set it up correctly. First things first, is this even possible for me to use synthetic division? Yes, because it's an x plus 3, so I can use synthetic division. Remember, for synthetic division, your first step is to check if you could do it, yes. And then second step is to take that 3 and make it the opposite. So I'm going to make it the opposite, or find my 0. That's a -3 on the outside. -3 on the outside, I'm going to go ahead and add the numbers inside, multiply the numbers on the outside, okay? All right, what do I do next? Now I got to take these coefficients. This is an x cubed, x squared, x, and a constant, so this is in descending order. I'm just going to take the coefficients and stick them right here. So my first coefficient is a 1, followed by a 4, followed by a -1, followed by a -1. First step, once you have your table filled out, your next step is you're going to take that 1, you're going to bring it down, it just becomes a +1. And then we start the machine, right? We're going to take -3, multiply it by 1, that's a -3. I'm going to take these two numbers and add the -3. 4 plus -3 is a +1. I'm going to take the -3 and multiply it by that +1, that becomes a -3 again. I'm going to take the -1 and add the -3, that becomes a -4. I'm going to take -3 and multiply it by -4, that gives me a +12. I'm going to take this -1 and add the +12, I get a +11. All right, so now that I have that, now the question becomes, what do I do with it, right? Again, this last number is going to be a remainder. So I do have a remainder this time, it's 11. And then the rest of it is going to tell me exactly what it was, starting low, going high. So this is my constant, this is how many x's, and this is how many x squareds. So I'm going to write this as 1x squared plus 1x minus 4. Remember that your remainder is 11, positive 11, over your divisor, which in this case, your divisor is the x plus 3. We don't write it like this, though, so we're going to go ahead and erase those coefficients that have a 1, and I am done. Again, what did we just figure it out? Well, we figured out that when I take this polynomial and I divide it by this polynomial, the answer I get is something like this. All right, I'm going to go a little bit, I was going to say a little bit faster, but nope, that's not true. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Yes, this is viable for me to do it. Hey, by the way, if this would have been a -1, then the number that you put over here is a positive one. Just whatever is inside that parentheses, you got to go opposite, okay? I should have done a better job of picking a different problem, but that's okay. You hopefully you understand what I just said. So this is going to be a -1 on the outside. I'm going to make my table. I'm going to look for coefficients. First of all, this is in the correct order. That's a 1x cubed, but the 1x cubed also tells me that I have 0x squared, I have 0 x's, and then I have a -19. I need those zeros as placeholders. So again, I have 1x cubed, I have 0x squared, I have 0 x's, and then I have a -19 as my last number. Okay, so hopefully you understand where those zeros are coming from. Again, x cubed, 0x squared, 0 x's, minus a 19. Okay, so that's where that's coming from. You don't need to write all that. I'm just showing you where the numbers are coming from. You absolutely need the placeholders. I'm going to go ahead and add. Just want to make sure I have the same colors. So I'm going to add the first number, multiply the second number. Start our process by bringing down the 1, and then the machine starts. So -1 times 1, that gives me a -1. 0 plus -1, that gives me a -1. -1 times -1, that gives me a +1. 0 plus 1, that gives me a +1. -1 times 1, that gives me a -1. -19 plus -1, that gives me a -20. That last number is always going to be a remainder. And now that I know my remainder, then that means that this is going to be my constant. This is going to be the number of x's, and this is going to be the number of x squared. So I end up with 1x squared. I'm just going to write x squared. Minus an x, I'm just going to write minus x plus a 1. And I do have a remainder, so I'm going to write this as minus, because it's negative, 20 over whatever my divisor was. My divisor was x plus 1. Hopefully, you're starting to get the hang of it and you go like, oh, that's really not too bad. It's actually kind of fast, okay? And I just want to see, yep, they were all addition, unfortunately, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and try this last one. I want you to go ahead and try it. I'm going to go really fast. Press pause on the video. You try. I'm going to assume you already did that, so we're going to go fast, fast, fast. Remember, we're going to do opposite of whatever is in here, so that's going to be a -2. Make my little table. Do I need any zeros? Nope, it looks like I'm good because all of my terms are there. So I need to fill this out with a 3, a 2, a -4, and a +6. We are going to add the numbers on the top and multiply by the numbers on the bottom. Take that first number, bring it down. That becomes a 3. -2 times 3, that's a -6. 2 plus -6, that's a -4. -2 times -4, that's a +8. -4 plus 8, that's a +4. -2 times 4, that's a -8. 6 plus -8, that's a -2. And because that's my last number, that's my remainder. If that's my remainder, then this is my constant, this is my x, and this is my x squared. So that means my answer must be 3x squared minus 4x plus 4. My remainder is -2, so I'm going to write this as -2 over whatever my divisor was, which is x plus 2. Look how fast that was, guys. Like that compared to having to do this. Like, remember how long that took and all the things you had to keep track of? It's so much easier to use synthetic division, right? Hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, remember that what we just found right now was the answer to this divided by this is equal to this. Okay? All right. We'll see you in the next video, and I think that's it.